Hi, everyone. Welcome back. So today we're talking about ambivalent attachment, which is also sometimes called fearful-avoidant. And if you watched our anxious and avoidant videos and found yourself thinking, wait, both of those depending on who I am with, or if your role in relationships seems to flip depending on your partner's behavior, we hope this video is going to make a bit of clarity. So this is one of the most misunderstood attachment styles because it's so dynamic. You're not consistently anxious and you're not consistently avoidant, but you're kind of reactive. You become the chaser when your partner pulls away, and you become the runner when your partner chases you. So it's like you're constantly adjusting your position to maintain a certain distance in the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And when we want to say this upfront, if you recognize yourself here, this doesn't mean you're playing games or being manipulative. This is an unconscious survival strategy. Your nervous system is literally trying to maintain what feels like a safe level of closeness. Not too far, not too close. Even if you don't have ambivalent attachment yourself, understanding this will help you so much. Because if you ever been confused by someone who seems really into you when you were distant, but then pulled away the moment you reciprocated, this is probably what was happening. Today we're going deep. What ambivalent attachment actually is, where it comes from, how it shows up, and how to work with it. Because here's what we genuinely believe: you have the power to transform any pattern in your life.
Okay, so ambivalent attachment is when you have both anxious and avoidant tendencies, and your behavior shifts based on your partner's behavior. If your partner is anxious, pursuing you, wanting more closeness and commitment, you usually feel not engaged, a bit bored at times by the security of the relationship, which you perceive as boring, and all these make you take distance and become a bit avoidant. You need space, you pull back, you might feel suffocated, you become the runner. But if your partner is avoidant, creating distance, being emotionally unavailable, you feel more attached, more engaged. You can't stop thinking of them. All these make you ask for more attention, more time together, and you become anxious about losing that person. You pursue them. You need reassurance. You want more connection. You are the chaser there. And it's like you have this internal balance that's constantly adjusting to keep the relationship following this specific dynamic in which there is a runner who runs away and a chaser who chases. And you're unconsciously taking on whatever role is needed to maintain that distance in the relationship. So in one relationship, you might look completely avoidant. You are the one who needs space, who's emotionally unavailable, who's pulling away. But in another one, with maybe a more avoidant partner, you look completely anxious. So you are the one needing reassurance, who's afraid of abandonment. So being a runner and a chaser are very different roles. However, you live both these extremes depending on who is in front of you.
Yeah. And this is what makes ambivalent attachment so confusing, both for you and for people trying to understand you, because you're not consistently one way. Your attachment style is reactive and relational. It depends on who you are with and what they're doing in that moment. So where does this came from? Ambivalent attachment often develops from childhood experiences that were inconsistent or confusing in a particular way. Maybe your caregivers were sometimes intrusive or overwhelming, and other times distant or unavailable. So you learn to constantly adjust your behavior based on their energy. Or maybe you had to be the emotional regulator in your family. When your parent was anxious, You had to be calm and independent. When your parent was distant, you had to pursue them for attention. You became really skilled at reading the room and adapting accordingly. What you learned was I can't trust anyone that maintain a healthy distance. People are either going to smother me or abandon me. So I need to constantly adjust to keep things balanced. And that's exhausting. But it's what feels safe to your nervous system. The core wound is this. You don't trust other people to regulate the intimacy in the relationship. You don't believe someone can be consistently available without being overwhelming or independent without being abandoning. So you unconsciously take on the role of maintaining that balance yourself.
Yes. So let's talk about what ambivalent attachment actually looks like in real life, because recognizing these patterns is crucial. So when you're dating someone who's really into you, texting you all the time, wanting to see you constantly, talking about feelings and the future, you start feeling a little bit suffocated. You find that person very boring, predictable, and you don't feel engaged in the relationship because who wants a relationship with someone boring, right? So you need more space, and you might become less responsive, more distant, questioning the relationship, questioning your feelings for that person. In another relationship, maybe your partner is the one pulling back. Maybe they are the ones always getting busy with work, with friends, and they give you space. Maybe they also seem less interested, less into you. So in this scenario, you don't feel like taking distance. On the contrary, you suddenly panic. You are now the one that's reaching out, needing reassurance, wanting more connection, more time together, asking your partner for presence. It's like you can only want someone when they're not fully available, and you can only pull away when they're pursuing you. So here's a question. Have you ever noticed that you're most attracted to someone at the exact moment they are pulling away? And then when they come back and want you, suddenly you're not that sure anymore.
This is a push-pull dynamic, but from a reactive place. Unlike disorganized attachment, where the push-pull comes from your own internal chaos, with ambivalent attachment, it's more like you're responding to your partner's movements. You might also notice that you're attracted to people who are somewhat unavailable or inconsistent. Not completely avoidant, that will trigger too much anxiety, but not super secure and consistent either, that would feel boring or suffocating. You're drawn to people who keep you guessing a little bit because that familiar instability is what your nervous system recognizes as normal. Here's something that might really resonate. Do you find that your feelings about someone change dramatically based on their behavior? Like when they're pursuing you, you see all their flaws and feel unsure. But when they pull back, suddenly you remember why you like them and all their good qualities come back into focus. That's the ambivalent pattern. Your perception of them literally shifts based on the distance between you because you're unconsciously using your feelings to regulate that distance. You might also notice patterns in your relationship history. Maybe you've been in several relationships where you started as the more avoidant one, pulling away from an anxious partner, and other relationship where you were the more anxious one, pursuing an avoidant partner. Same person, totally different roles depending on who you are with.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing are conflicts, because conflicts can be really confusing with ambivalent attachment. Um, when your response depends entirely on how your partner is showing up, right, is confusing. If they're really emotional and pursuing resolution, you might shut down or want space. But if they are withdrawing and giving you, the silent treatment, you might panic, as we said, and you need to fix things immediately. So there is also this thing where you might sometimes want to test people unconsciously. So you pull away to see if they will chase you. And if they do, they care. But then you also feel suffocated. If they don't chase you, instead, you feel abandoned. So it's like you can't win, and neither can they, right? Sometimes you might find yourself doing something to provoke a reaction or a conflict. Let's make an example. Let's say your partner comes back home after an entire day at work. They didn't text, they barely responded to your texts, and you felt not prioritized the entire day, not considered for the whole day. And you're very nervous and annoyed because of this. Okay. So they arrive home, they're tired and just wanted to chill, perhaps just spend some calm time, even some me time. But you can finally receive the attention you waited for the whole day, right? So you start asking for attention and they start pulling away. This is the final red flag your nervous system needed to think they don't care about you. So you overreact, make a scene to provoke a reaction from them to see if they actually care. They're tired, just wanted to be left in peace without, what they call dramas, and you end up arguing. Your intention wasn't to argue at all. It was only to receive some reassurance, some sort of, reassurance and love, to hear, I love you, I've been thinking of you all day, but now as a fact you have an argument, the situation is even worse, and it's emotionally very intense to be in a relationship like this. As we always say, relationships are a mirror, okay? So all this back and forth is showing you that you don't trust the natural flow of intimacy. You don't trust that someone can be close to you without smothering you, or independent without abandoning you.
Yeah. And if you recognize yourself in the ambivalent attachment style, you tend to be more attracted to an avoidant person because, as we've seen, you feel more connected and more invested precisely when the other person is pulling away. Their distance activates your attachment system. It makes you feel alert, engaged, and suddenly very interested in closing the gap. There is usually a very intense chemistry as well when it comes to these couples, especially in moments of intimacy. The push-pull dynamic heightens emotions. The longing, the inconsistency, the anticipation, all of this creates a kind of emotional roller coaster that makes you feel there is a lot of passion. For many ambivalent attached people, that emotional intensity feels like real love. The heights are incredibly high, and the lows makes you crave closeness even more. So when the avoidant partner finally gives you attention, opens up a little, or shows affection, the relief you feel is so powerful that it deepens the bond even further. This makes the relationship feel addictive. You're always waiting for the next moment of closeness, the next signs of interest, the next emotional reward. And because avoidant partners tend to give affection inconsistently, the connection feels unpredictable, which only strengthens the attraction from the ambivalent side.
Absolutely. And as you and your partner have different behaviors, conflicts will naturally arise. One of the hardest parts is generally understand each other, because it feels as though no matter how much you try to explain yourself or your feelings or your needs, they just can't grasp it. And you can't fully understand their explanations either. So, for instance, they might say they didn't text all day long because they were just busy, tired, or, simply focused on something else. For you, this doesn't feel like a valid explanation because everyone has time for a text. So you think they don't care or they don't prioritize your relationship, okay? So for them, even if they understand your point, even if they understand you felt anxious or maybe unsettled, it seems as though you're asking too much from them and they can't and they don't want to be available all the time. So they'd rather be left alone, as for them, every relationship is a prison that takes freedom away from you. So these misunderstandings usually end with some sort of agreement on, you know, how to meet halfway. Perhaps they promise to check their phone a bit more, they check in a bit more, and you promise not to panic if they're quiet for a bit. Truth is, these agreements often don't last. Old patterns return, expectations aren't met, and another conflict inevitably follows, right? So, what's tricky is that all these conflicts and the emotional highs and lows actually boost the attraction in the relationship. The tension, the makeups, the emotional intensity, it all adds on to the chemistry between you. And this cycle contributes to keeping the two partners tied together, even though the relationship feels unstable and confusing. The exhausting part is that these relationships, in these relationships, you're never fully at peace. You feel alive, amazing, the ups are full of happiness, but then there are the downs, and the downs are tough. I know some of you might think I'd rather have a difficult relationship with downs, but at least with these ups, than a relationship where I feel bored and not challenged at all, where everything seems to follow a script. We completely understand this point of view, absolutely. However, we would like you to open up to the possibility that these feelings might be an illusion. It might help to start reflecting on why you feel like running away if someone gets close to you, if they give you the love you deserve, and why you crave that specific love when the person can't give that love to you, and why when you finally have it, you don't want it. We don't want you to think this is a tunnel with no end, okay, and that it will be this way forever, because it won't. On the contrary, we would like you to open up to the idea that there are other ways that it's possible to be happy with someone you love and that loves you back. It is
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
It is totally possible to feel truly satisfied in a relationship without having to chase the person, ask for attention, and without feeling overwhelmed by the presence of someone in your life. It's possible to have a relationship which you feel safe, free to be yourself, in which there's authentic communication from the heart, that's transparency, there's trust, that both people can have their own rhythms without the relationship falling apart. This is secure attachment, and this is what we ultimately want to work towards. Of course, it's a process and requires some work, but here's is how to get there. First, and most important, you need to start recognizing when you're reacting rather than responding. When you feel that urge to pull away because your partner is being too much, pause, just pause, and ask yourself, is this generally overwhelming or am I just reacting because they're getting close? When you feel that panic because your partner seems distant, also pause. Ask yourself, are they actually abandoning me? Or am I just reacting because they're not pursuing me right now? Creating that space between their behavior and your reaction is huge. It gives you the chance to see the pattern instead of just leaving it automatically. Of course, it's not so easy, but little by little, step by step, you also can do it. It's very important to do this because it's the first most important point. Second, you need to practice tolerating consistency. This is going to sound counterintuitive, but you need to challenge your attraction to push-pull dynamics. When someone is stable and consistent, and your brain is saying, this is boring, or this is strange, it can't happen, recognize that as your partner, not as truth. It's just your partner thinking for you. It's not you. Real love isn't supposed to be a constant roller coaster. Real peace isn't boring. Real love is simple and peaceful.
Yeah. And as a third point, you could try to work on developing your own internal sense of what you need and what you want, independent on your partner's behavior. We think this is important because right now your wants and your needs are reactive. You want closeness when they're distant, space when they're close. So, but what do you actually want? What feels good to you in a relationship, regardless of what they are doing? This requires getting really honest with yourself, and doing some inner work. We genuinely believe that the more you heal your inner child, that part of you that learned to constantly adjust to others, that learned patterns from the very early age, the freer you become to know and express your authentic needs. And by the way, we prepared this wonderful resource where you can learn how to get in touch and heal your inner child, which is available for free to the members of our community. So if you're part of our community, you probably already have access to it. If not, we'll leave you the link down to this video to get access to our community so you can have it as well. Okay, going back to our topic of the day. We always speak about communication and how communication is essential. As we mentioned before, it's not as easy as it might seem to have good communication in a relationship in between an ambivalent and an avoidant. However, we believe that through authentic, heart-centered communication, you can work through almost anything. But you really need to be honest about what's happening, and also honest with yourself, with the patterns that you see are happening, okay? So as we said, it's not always easy to deeply understand and respect each other when you live different attachment styles. However, it could be a good start instead of pulling away when they pursue, for example. Try saying, I'm noticing I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I need some breathing room, some me time, but I want you to know this is my pattern, and it doesn't mean I don't care about you. I know it takes a lot to do this, but it might be really important for your relationship. On the other hand, if you are instead feeling anxious, instead of panicking when they need space, try saying, I'm noticing my anxiety is getting triggered. Can we check in tomorrow? So you take some time for yourself as well. Can we check in tomorrow so I know we're still good?
Yeah. And there's something really important. You need to look for and practice being in relationship with secure partners. Because here's what happens with ambivalent attachment. You're drawn to people who recreate the push-pull because it's familiar. But a secure partner won't play that game. They'll stay consistent whether you pursue or distant. And that consistency is exactly what your nervous system needs to learn that intimacy can be safe. It will feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. Your brain will tell you that they're boring or there's no chemistry. But that discomfort is actually growth. That you're learning a new way of being in a relationship. Also considering getting support, therapy, coaching, doing deep inner work on your attachment patterns. Sometimes we need outside perspectives to help us to see clearly, and that's not so weakness, that's wisdom. You can absolutely transform these patterns. We've seen it happen. Research shows it's possible, and we believe in our power to change. But it requires awareness, practice, and a willingness to feel uncomfortable as you learn new ways of relating. Every time you notice yourself about to flip roles and you pause instead of reacting. Every time you stay present, even when your partner's behavior triggers your activity, every time you communicate honestly about what's happening inside of you, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're teaching yourself that you don't have to manage every relationship dynamic, that intimacy can have its naturally ebb and flow.
Absolutely. So, well, I think that was mainly it for this video. We hope the information we shared in this video were somehow useful. And please know you can reach out to us if you feel you need a bit more support. We offer group sessions, individual support, and if you have also any specific request on a topic you would like to see in one of our videos, feel free to drop us a comment here or under any other video. Also, if you would like to receive some specific advice on your situation and receive our answer in form of a video, you can send us a detailed email and we'll be happy to make a video on it to answer your specific question. Of course, keeping everything, your name, and other names that might be part of the email. We will change them. We'll use fantasy names. You can already do it. So we'll keep your privacy, absolutely. But that's also an option. Of course, try to add, if you want to do that, try to send us an email with as many relevant details as possible so we can give an accurate answer. We can try to do that. We're going to make also more videos about specific situations, so ambivalent attachment in relationships, in dating, how to choose secure partners, how to communicate your needs. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss them. And thank you so much for being here today. And we'll see you in the next one.
Ciao,
Bye
bye.
bye.